Welcome to Ridgecrest Talk with my guest today, George Runner, Vice Chair, Board of Equalization Representative for our district. And thank you so much for joining
Hey, it's
us
good to be here.
today.
Glad to be. Always good to be back home in the high desert.
And you're going to be at the Ridgecrest Republican Women Luncheon today, and not everybody will be able to make it, but more people will be able to
Good. Good.
hear
We're glad.
what you have
Well,
to
thank you for
share.
inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. And just to start off, you've recently given a small business seminar or sponsored a small business seminar in Ridgecrest. And how did that go?
Went great. I mean, we believe, and that in my role as a member of the Board of Equalization, one of the issues that I believe we need to do is help businesses succeed. When people go into business, they don't think about tax issues. They don't think about, you know, HR issues. They just have this idea and vision that they're investing their capital in. They want to, they want to own their own business. And yet, if they don't understand the rules and the regulations and the tax consequences, they could all of a sudden lose that dream. So we think it's real important to kind of help them in the beginning, to help them understand what they need to know in order to help them succeed. And that's really why we do these. And we do these up and down the state in my district. My district starts down in LA and runs to the Oregon border. And we have many of these that, again, to assist and help businesses be able to be successful.
And so, on that long district there, I want to point out that you represent more than 9 million Californians as a member of the State Board of
Right.
Equalization.
There's the board. The Board of Equalization is made up of 4 members that are elected by district and the state controller elected statewide. So that makes the districts really large. Each one of us have about 9 million constituents. And my district, because it has all the mountains and the desert in it, has a lot of land area. So we actually represent about 60% of the land area of California.
So, and then now let's see, you were voted the board's vice chair, and you see yourself or represent yourself as a leading advocate for California taxpayers.
Right. California is unique in that it's the only state that has this directed elected tax board. And so just as when I was in the legislature and the assembly and the Senate, I view the folks who I represent as my constituents, to service them, to meet their needs, to help them succeed in sometimes a complicated life here in California. And so we see the same thing on now that we're on the Board of Equalization, a tax board. That is, we seek to help people be successful in what sometimes can be a very cumbersome tax process here in California.
Well, and before we get into some of those fine points of what you accomplish in the Board of Equalization, what it is, I want to, of course, most people probably know your wife, Senator Sharon Renner, and that you're recognized as the only husband and wife team who have served concurrently.
We were the first. There's been a few others since then, but we were the first.
Okay.
And yes, Sharon represents. Actually, she was in the Assembly and the Senate, and then didn't run for re-election, and then just this last March got re-elected, then in a special election to represent the area down in the Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita and the high desert over in Victorville and in those communities just last March. So she's back in the legislature now.
And now you were named Legislator of the Year by several organizations: California State Sheriff's Association, Crime Victims United, California Sexual Assault Investigators, which I should have mentioned here that you authored the well-known California Amber Alert.
Yeah, it again, it was a real privilege of being a part of that kind of a piece of public policy. And as I remind people, its first use of the Amber Alert back, gosh, now over 10 years ago, I think now. Yeah, well over 10. Was actually 2 teenage girls in the Antelope Valley that got kidnapped. It was the first time the Amber Alert was used, which is the idea of going on the emergency broadcasting system, breaking into radios, telling people a description of a car and a license plate so that people around can then report what they see. And so close to what happened up here is the kidnapper who did this was driving up 395. A Caltrans worker out in Red Rock Canyon identified the car, called up the police, and they chased down the perpetrator and the kidnapped girls here just a few miles up the hill here, toward Lake Isabella. And as a result of that, the girls were rescued, and he was killed by Kern County deputies. And so again, we've had literally hundreds of children who have been saved as a result of the Amber Alert, which again is just it's a very simple system. It just puts everybody else engaged in trying to track down and find perpetrators.
I know when I hear it, I'm always trying to write down the license plate number. I take a mental picture of the vehicle being described, so I can tell. But I have gotten that. I'm going to have to take it off my phone.
Yeah, it is interesting because again, everybody gets engaged with it. So I remember when the telephone people first said they're going to start doing it, and we thought, oh, that's good, that's a good thing. But I have been I've been woken up in the middle of the night with an Amber Alert that goes off on my phone. So there is a little deal that you can just close. But I don't know if I have to look at my phone closer to see if you could actually set time limits. So at least
or turn it down.
Yeah, because it'd be a bit shocking in the middle of the night.
It's shocking. I mean, I've been on my landline and then it goes off on my
Yeah.
cell phone, and I just literally jump and it's. Really loud. It's much louder than it is even on just when it comes across the radio.
Yep.
But quickly before we go to break, let's mention the Jessica's Law. And you co-authored that now.
Sharon and I, we were frustrated that the legislature just was not moving on protecting kids against sexual predators. And so we did move forward with an initiative called Jessica's Law, named after Jessica Lunsford from Florida, who was kidnapped and murdered. Brought that initiative to the people of California. People of California overwhelmingly voted for that, and now, as a result of that, California has tougher laws when it comes to sexual predators, both in terms of incarceration, in terms of monitoring, all those issues. So, again, we were privileged to do that, but unfortunately, it was because the legislature didn't do what they should have done.
Okay, so we're going to get ready and take a quick break. Is there anything, we didn't mention the schools you founded, but we're not going to have quite enough time. Maybe there's something you'd like to get in, but they're going strong still. Desert
Christian Schools. I think even some of the sports teams around this area actually plays them in some sports. So yes, we were a part of that, and really proud to be a founder of that program.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break and come back and talk about the Board of Equalization. Thank you so much. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk with my guest, George Runner, Vice Chair of Board of Equalization. And so we've been going a little bit over who you are and your background and history and legislature and all. But now I wanted to talk about the Board of Equalization.
Okay,
and so let's just start with what is the Board of Equalization, and in particular, equalization?
Why? Sure. The California's, I think we might have mentioned that, but it's the only state that has this directly elected tax board, which is very unique because then we look at individuals in our districts as our constituents in order for us to help them. The history of the Board of Equalization is very interesting in that it started back in the late 1800s, and it was brought into place because railroads were having difficulties as they would be buying property and they would be moving a railroad line from one county to another. One county would charge an exorbitant property tax on them, and another county would charge a lower property tax. And so there was then an effort then to put on the ballot the State Board of Equalization. The idea that said, well, okay, on utilities or transportation that runs from county to county, they are not going to be assessed by the local county. They're going to be assessed by a state board. And that became then the Board of Equalization. The idea of equalization, equalizing the property tax around the state for those kind of efforts.
Okay.
So that was originally
statewide efforts.
So right. So as a result of that, that was railroads, and so we still do railroad. We do all the assessment on railroads, but now it includes things like gas lines, electrical lines, all those issues that basically run from one county to another. we end up taking on responsibility for assessing. So that's one part of what we do, and that's where it grew out of in terms of the name and also the role. And that's in the state constitution in terms of that role. But since then, the legislature has given a number of responsibilities to the Board of Equalization. One of the key ones, for instance, that most people are responsible for or know of, especially if we're in business, is we're responsible for communicating and talking about and instructing people how to collect and remit sales tax. And so we are responsible for overseeing then the collection of sales tax and training of people in regards to how to do that and deal with that. And we also have about 35 other taxes that we oversee, that we actually collect, in taxes and fees that we collect.
From businesses?
Mostly business taxes, although we're going to talk about one of them in a little bit at the end, I believe, the next segment, in regards to the fire fee. And then we'll talk about that, because that's another one that we're responsible for.
And that's an issue right now.
Right, and that's because the legislature then decides who's going to do it. They're going to have something, they're going to say, well, who's responsible for it? And they oftentimes give it to the Board of Equalization. The other item that we do, which is really, I think, one of the most interesting things that I believe our board does, and that is we are actually the place of appeals for tax issues. And so if somebody doesn't like the way, they believe they were audited for, let's say, it's a business, for some special tax or a fee or their sales tax remittance, and they don't think they were audited correctly, they get to appeal that to the Board of Equalization. We also get to do that for income tax. For anybody in California who then has an income tax, we all pay an income tax, state of California, and you file that with the State Franchise Tax Board. If they audit you and you don't believe that you believe you were correct and they are wrong, you have the ability to appeal that then to our board. And so every month we sit in a hearing and we hear these presentations by taxpayers. And we listen to the facts and we then make a decision in regards to whether or not the state was fair and right in a tax that they put on an individual taxpayer.
Does it come to that frequently?
Yeah, we meet every month. We'll
to hear specifically those
cases,
appeals.
And we will meet from 2 to 3 days. We alternate between Northern California and Southern California, and it's really interesting because one appeal could be a $500 million claim in regards to some income tax issue with AT&T. The next one could be some mom and pop convenience store that is having a dispute with the Board of Equalization on a $500 tax dispute. And so it really is interesting, the kinds of cases
they're going to dispute you, and you're going to hear their appeal to you.
Well, they're disputing their audit.
Okay.
But I don't represent the auditors. I represent the voters.
Okay.
So the auditors didn't elect me. It's the voters that elected me. So they get to come to me as their elected representative to determine whether or not they were treated fairly, both under the law and in the intent of the law. And I can tell you right now, by far, taxpayers win far more than they lose. And that's a good thing, I think, for California taxpayers.
Right. So it was curious to me that I had seen in the election booklet that you had served another area, and I guess that just got moved because of redistricting, or should we talk? Can we talk about that?
Real quick, right? I have a court of the state, and just like a congressional member or a state senator or a state assembly member, every 10 years we do redistricting. And so the redistricting commission redoes districts, including the Board of Equalization. And so my first term had a little different areas to it than my second term. It's probably 90% the same, but for the most part, I still represent the kind of the east side of California. There were some adjustments because my particular board seat was overpopulated, and so they needed to move some folks out of they needed to redo my district, give me a little less area in order to build up some of the other areas.
Oh, okay. Because at first I thought, wow, what are they doing? Just playing musical chairs here with the...
So then they renumber them. And as a result of that, my number went from the second district to the first district.
Okay.
Just like, and again, the same thing happens with Assembly and Senate and congressional seats. At redistricting, they kind of start, the way that works is you start numbering from the top to the bottom of the state, and it depends on where they move. if one moved a little bit north, then they're going to get a lower number than if they move to the south, they'll get a higher number.
Uh-huh. Very interesting. Okay, so I guess that pretty much, the only thing we didn't touch on, I don't know if we have time before we go to our next break, but in terms of permits for businesses, sometimes you get them from the city, sometimes you get them from the Board of Equalization.
You always need a seller's permit. If you're going to buy or sell goods in the state of California, you're responsible for collecting and remitting a sales tax. And so you always need a seller's permit. And so that's the permit that you get when you go ahead and do that and then become a registered seller in the state of California. And we have
from the Board of Equalization.
From the Board of Equalization. We have just around 1 million of those in the state. And so that's what we do.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be right back after this brief break. Thank you. Welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk with our guest, Board of Equalization, George Runner, Vice Chair, George Runner. And so talking about taxes, I wanted to talk about this new, it's referred to as a tax reform, and I understand that you oppose it and see it as a tax increase.
I basically believe that Californians are overtaxed and overregulated. I believe that and I quite frankly don't think that Californians get good value for the taxes they do pay.
Well, what is this? What's the name of it?
Well, it's the idea is a tax on services. And so just like we pay a sales tax now when you buy goods, if you go to buy a car, you go to buy, and there's always an attempt to try to figure out how to get more money. So this idea of a tax on services, which has been presented on a bill, it didn't move anywhere, but it's always being talked about.
Is it Senate Bill 8?
Yes, Senate Bill 8.
Senate Bill 8.
And is the idea that says, well, let's go ahead and do like a sales tax on services. So that means like when you go get your hair cut, or you go get a massage, or you go to your, whatever it is that you're going to be doing, you would also pay a tax, a sales tax on that. And
to now people haven't done that.
No, right now none of those services aren't taxed. You just own tangible goods.
Tax on.
And so the idea that when you go ahead and like it's whatever it is, get your swimming pool cleaned or whatever it is, that you don't pay a service tax on that or sales tax on that. So it's the idea of expanding that. And it's interesting. What bothers me about that is right now that's kind of being presented as a tax reform idea. Well, I don't believe it's a tax reform idea. I believe it's actually a tax increase. It's nothing to do with reforming tax. It has to do with expanding tax, and that's not reform to me. I think again that we don't need to figure out how to get more money. I think we need to figure out how to be more efficient with the money that we already take in. So we've been opposed to any kind of efforts to try to expand that to services. That goal of the particular bill is to raise $10 billion more for the state of California.
When you say we, is that the board in general?
Well, I'd say, I guess for those of us who oppose those kinds of things.
Okay.
So, right.
All right.
I thought, the board itself, there's probably a split on it, right? But
yeah.
I believe, and I think many of us as conservatives believe that it is in fact, I know all of us as conservatives believe that it's unnecessary to be able to do that. My thought is, hey, in fact, I threw that out as a discussion, and that is, hey, if you're going to do tax on services, then let's go ahead and maybe do tax on services, but let's throw away state income tax then. There's 5 other states that don't have state income tax, so it's not like it's that radical of an idea. And let's go ahead and do tax differently, tax more on a consumption basis, based upon how people spend their money, whether it be for services or whether it be for goods. But let's do away with income tax then.
I love that idea.
In order to get, and that to me that's what you call real reform. This idea of
that is reform.
This idea of just going ahead and taxing services.
Adding another tax.
It's just adding another tax and giving politicians in Sacramento more money is just a bad idea.
So when I was reading about your opposition to this reform or new tax, Senate Bill 8, I'll call it, as they call it, you sound very much like the fair tax, which is a more of a national, getting rid of the IRS. In this case, it would be the state.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the FTB for franchise tax boards. Yeah, so it is similar, and the philosophy is exactly the same, and that is people should be able to keep their money that they earn, and then they should pay a tax on the money that they spend. And so that's the idea, the whole concept between the difference. Whereas right now we have a system that does both to us right now. You not only buy you only get your money taken away when you spend it, but you also
earn it.
But you also get money taken away when you earn it.
Yeah, right.
And again, so the concept is the same. It's a bigger picture when you talk about the fair tax in terms of a national effort, in terms of what they're talking about, like with Social Security and lots of other things. But it's the concept is the same. You base your collection of tax on how people spend their money. I think it's a very fair way to do it because basically people who have less spend less, people who have more spend more.
Right.
And so I think that's why it's a good concept. But unfortunately, we live in a state that progressive and liberals don't necessarily think that way, and so they're going to continue, I think, to try to assault taxpayers with more tax, not less.
Unless they want to do something radical and really try to do something innovative with reform and get rid of the income tax.
Could be because, but I think that anything radical that's done by this legislature and this governor has to do with trying to raise more money, not less, or being more. Has nothing to do with that, with trying to be more efficient. It has to do with trying to do more, spend more, get more, so that you can grow government. And I just have real problems with that.
So, well then, let's move on to the. I don't want to neglect to touch on the issue of the state responsibility areas for fires.
The fire fee. A couple of years ago, the state legislature, no, more than that now, 4 or 5 years ago, the state legislature, the state didn't have some money at that time, and so they were trying to figure out how to get more money. So what they did is they saw the people who were getting services by CAL FIRE. And these services were fire prevention programs. And they said, let's go ahead and take this money that right now our general fund is paying, and let's carve that out, and let's let them pay it for themselves, and with a fee. And I believe it's a tax.
And that goes to businesses?
No, it goes for people who live in these state responsibility areas. Basically homeowners.
Oh.
It goes to homeowners, not businesses. And that's if indeed you live in an area that is not in a city. And then you pay this fee. It's about just about between $100 and $150, depending upon kind of what category you're in. I think it was done illegally. It was done with a simple majority vote bill. I think it was a fee tax. It should have been with a majority or a 2/3 vote bill. We're fighting it in court. We think it's very problematic. If people would like more information about the fire fee and what they can do and how they need to get more information, what's happening with the lawsuit. We have actually a website called calfirefee.com, and you can go right to that and you can get all that information. We think it's just a wrong policy. It's bad policy. The Board of Equalization, the legislature, when they did it, made us responsible for collecting it. But at the same time, we're helping people know what it is that they need to fight it. So, I should also mention, if people do have tax issues, the easiest way to get back to our office, because again, we look at everybody as our constituents. But the easiest way to get a hold of me is at my website, my personal website, which is georgerunner.com. And on that website, there's actually a little button that you can push that says, I need tax help. And you just open that up and you can put your tax question in there, and we'll get it and we'll start assisting you in that process. So
wonderful.
It's just a service that we believe we need to offer, and it's actually the fastest, easiest way to get a hold of us. You can always call our numbers, but that's an easy way to kind of get right to it, and we can follow up on it. In
our last 10 seconds, what's that number?
Okay,
that's okay. We'll just do it the website.
I'd go to CalFire, I'd go to georgerunner.com, and then we don't need to worry about the phone numbers.
Okay, then they're there. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Good to be here with you.
I appreciate it. All right.